to the announcement of Morning Coffee Writing Competition 2022. So grateful that you're here. My name is Carol. I founded the competition in 2020. Have a few thank yous first of all before we go forward. Thank you first of all to Vanessa Fox O'Loughlin and Writing.ie who sponsored us this year and meant that we were able to give the winner a cash prize, which was really incredible, wonderful to be able to value writers' work appropriately. Thank you so much to Sinead and Orla, as always, at Sonder Magazine. You're incredible to work with. You're both incredible in general. Thank you to our social media team. So that's Ella McGill, Eve Murta, and Saif Kellett. Couldn't have done it without you at all. Thank you to our editorial team. So that was Ashlyn and Jake. Thank you also to the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre for the incredible work that you do, just across the board. And thank you to our guest judge, Nuala O'Connor. Really appreciated your time and wisdom. And thank you finally to every single person who submitted and donated. Really incredibly grateful for what we were able to do with your support. Delighted to announce that with that support, we were able to raise €1,158 for the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre, which is just incredible, and we're so delighted. So I'll hand you over now to Sinead and Orla.
Hello and welcome to the announcement of the Morning Coffee Writing Competition. I'm Sinead and this is Orla from Sonder Magazine, an Irish literary journal publishing short stories, creative non-fiction and flash fiction on a biannual basis. Copies of issue 6 are currently on sale. You can pick up a copy via our website and through our stockists, The Winding Stair, Marrowbone Books, Waterstones Cork, The Library Project and Kenny's in Galway.
The Morning Coffee Writing Competition was created in association with Sonder Magazine in 2020 to fundraise for the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre. The idea behind the title is that, even if the world is pretty dark at times, there are still nice bright things that get us through the day or up in the morning. Thanks to the kind support and generosity of everyone who submitted and donated, we proved positives really can come out of lockdown. The competition, now in its third year, has been an overwhelming success, receiving over 100 submissions and raising a total of €1,158.87 for the DRCC this year.
The winner will be published in issue 7 of Sonder Magazine next year. The winning piece is also now available to read alongside our 2 runners-up on our website. You can find the link in the description box below.
Thanks again to Carol for asking us to collaborate on this project. It's been a blast.
Hi, my name is Colette Schutz and I work at the fundraising department at the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre. So it gives me great pleasure today to say thank you to Sonder Magazine and to everybody who entered the writing competition. The money raised is fantastic, as it was last year, and the money will be used towards our range of services, which include our 24-hour national helpline, face-to-face counselling, accompaniment to court and to the Garda station and to the sexual assault unit, and our education and training services for professionals who might come in contact with people who disclose sexual abuse. We also have a few new services which I'm just going to briefly tell you about. The first one is our web chat. So this is working out really well, particularly for people who may not have privacy to speak on the phone, and it's also proving really popular with younger people. The other one is our interpreting service, which is on our helpline. So we now have over 200 languages, including Ukrainian, which is so vital at the moment. So our new campaign then is our Ask Consent campaign, which is starting in January, and we're very excited about that, and we're hoping to have a national conversation really about consent. And we have a new team working on this, and we're very excited about it. If anybody would like any more information, please do ring us. And thank you very much for your fundraising efforts, and I hope you all enjoyed the writing competition. Thank you, Sonder.
So our winners, selected by the incredible Nuala O'Connor. In third place, we have War by Mary Coleman, a story which will absolutely tug your heartstrings.
Would you say that the protagonist is attaching self-worth to the idea of being good at something? Yes, I think that's definitely true of the character in this story. This is a character, I would say, that doesn't know themselves very well. So they are attaching value and their core value and self-worth to the idea that they're good at football. And I think that is something that can happen to people. And this character has grown up playing sport, being really good at his club, and then making a county panel. And now that he has not made the team, he doesn't really know what else he has to offer the world. He hasn't done any exploration into himself. So that's where we find him. And it's quite a sad place that he's in. The protagonist's friendships are tied to their relationship with sport. That is definitely true as well. And sports and team sports are a brilliant way to make friends and to meet people. But I think for this character, the core emotion that he's dealing with, I think, is shame. And he made all of his friendships in club sport and county sport. And now that he didn't make the team, he's very, very embarrassed. Again, it's tied back to that sense of self-worth, and he just doesn't know what he could possibly have to say to lads that he played on a team with now that he's not on the team with them. And so he's pushing everybody away and isn't able to have conversations with them about how he's feeling, really. So the generational aspects of the relationship, and there is reference to this character's father, and I included that because I think with sport, and I think with Gaelic sport in particular, there are often great dynasties of great footballers, and it is passed on from generation to generation, that involvement. And I think that for this character, his father, in my head, his father was a great footballer on the county team, won an All-Ireland. And for this character, the fact that he can't meet his father's, match his legacy and meet his expectations is really, really devastating for him. And I suppose it's mixed up again in the self-worth. He thinks that for his father to love him and respect him, he needs to be good at football and to kick with left and right. And now that he hasn't made the team, that sense of shame, not only with his friends, but it's really magnified when he thinks about his father. And it's his father's voice in his head that is making everything seem worse. I thought it was important to include it because I do think that is the weight of parents' expectations is something that for this character has him in the place where we find him, which, as I said, is a very dark place where he can't see a way forward for him.
In second place, we have When the Mugs Don't Match by Abby White, a beautiful depiction of grief.
My name is Abby and my story is called When the Mugs Don't Match. Depicting community's response to grief was really important for me in this story. I myself grew up in a small, close-knit community and remember the positives and negatives that came from grieving in such an enclosed space. The support and the friendship that can come from community, as well as the familiarity that can be linked to community, and the constant reminders of the grief you are suffering. I think Irish society has a definite sense of community when it comes to grief and loss, and I really wanted to show that through the family and their experience of dealing with the community in times of grief. I started writing this story after a lecture on memory in UCD. It focused around how our own memory can often enrich fiction and not just non-fiction. This made me curious, and I went back and found all my old poetry and non-fiction that I had written in times of grief. Through that, I wanted to reflect these experiences in fictional characters, and soon enough, as I went through all the memories of grief and poetry, characters seemed to form around them, and soon the characters took on a life of their own, and I didn't even recognise my own memories through the characters' eyes. It was then a quite quick process of writing the story, as I was really interested in the family and really excited to write their story. Descriptions of grief through ordinary things was something that came quite natural to the piece. For me, when I was looking back on memories of grief, it was always ordinary things they were rooted in. Things that were sentimental, spaces that were familiar, and I think grief lives in the everyday objects that remind us of the people who we have lost. The descriptions kind of embody how grief moves through everyday life and how it affects us. How one day you can be oblivious, and when you take down a favourite mug, your grief can instantly wash over you. It lies in the everyday. Another reason is I always remember my mother recounting how irritated she was at everyday life and ordinary things that continue to exist after her grief. How in a time of change, ordinary things remain the same, and it can almost be irritating to someone who is suffering so much change and loss that everything else is working as normal. And I thought this was so interesting that it crept its way into most of my tragic description.
And finally, our first place winner is You and I by Niamh Busby. Beautiful story about childhood and friendship.
As someone who spends most of her times commuting to and from work on the train, it felt like a really natural setting for the story, because you do have those moments of bumping into someone from your past and being like, oh, I wish I knew what was going on in their lives, or just having all those memories flooding back of your past, of like maybe in school or uni, or maybe it's someone from a past relationship, or it could be 10 or more years since you've seen each other. And I really liked that thought of exploring how that could go and like how far I could push that type of situation, if you know what I mean. And then try and figure out what could cause people to maybe not speak again, what caused that like pause in their relationship. I honestly didn't realise how much of this piece included the senses until I read this question and then read back through it again and with fresh eyes really. And it does have a lot of different senses, especially about, which I think is really to do with how people talk about school or their teenage years. They remember like the feel of like their school uniform because it wasn't the most comfortable thing to wear when you're that age. The smell of different like classrooms and canteens and people's body sprays and perfumes and all that phase of their teenage years. And I think it's because memories are so rooted in the smells and senses, and it makes it a bit more real to write about. I think it makes people maybe relate a bit more to the piece because they have those memories as well. And writing about memory is very nice to write about, in my opinion. I really enjoy writing about memory and seeing how it can form people. I know some people think that the relationship between the two characters is maybe inspired by Sally Rooney or similar kind of fiction like that, but honestly it was more rooted in my own upbringing. It was very much don't ask, don't tell. You don't talk about serious subjects, you don't ask people about how they're feeling, you don't talk about mental health. And I think that's why like Northern Ireland is so, like their mental health rate is so bad, like it's the worst in Europe. And I think that's why, it's because we're not given the tools to talk about emotions or how to relate to each other, and like healthy relationships is not great. And I think that's why these two characters, it's all about what things left unsaid and not being able to talk to each other.